President, the General Assembly 2030 agenda and the Addis Ababa Financing Development Framework calls for such. And it is in this spirit that my government has embarked on reviewing and reforming our legislation and policies in the resource sector to ensure appropriate levels of national content in projects and facilitate fair and equitable returns for all stakeholders with shared interests. At the same time, we continue to value and respect and uphold our partnership obligations with the private sector in our natural resource sector. And Mr. President, may I say we remain open for business and therefore welcome bona fide international investors to join us in exploring opportunities that are still available in my country. Mr. President, my country continues to enjoy partnership with important multilateral financial institutions. Let me take a moment to thank the World Bank. I thank IMF, I thank ADB, and of course our valued bilateral partners, including Australia, New Zealand, Japan, China, India, European Union, the United States, for supporting my government's development priorities. It would be remiss of me not to also acknowledge the excellent work undertaken under the leadership of the Prime Ministers of Canada and Jamaica and the United Nations Secretary General for financing for development needed particularly in developing countries to recover and build back from the COVID-19 pandemic. Our call Papua New Guinea strongly supports. Mr. President, my government has prioritized in investing in the agricultural sector as an engine of economic growth and prosperity for our country. The strategic interventions are a combination of credit scheme that we've engaged upon, freight and price subsidy for our rural farmers, which has helped broaden the scope and reach the agricultural production sites in our country. This will not only help broaden the tax base and generate additional revenue the country needs for development, but also, more importantly, improve our rural communities and their livelihood and enable them to be proactive in as far as our nation building is concerned. Our largely rural-based economy is dependent on subsistence agriculture. It is my government's desire to transform the agricultural sector into a reliable, commercial and sustainable food system that will address food security and climate resilience, as well as conservation and management of our vast biodiversity. To support this, we have set targets to increase cash crop production by 30% and also increase livestock production by 30% by 2025 and develop taxation incentives for our local farmers. Additionally, this includes the formulation of an agriculture and livestock diversification plan by 2025 and our efforts to increase downstream processing by 30% in 2025 and ensure local landowners and provincial governments participate in the equity sharing and downstream business and the spin-offs that are associated with it. Mr. President, our efforts in the agricultural sector ties in well with the important global efforts under the United Nations Food System Summit convened virtually yesterday by the United Nations Secretary General. For Papua New Guinea, we have identified 5 key priority actions that forms our national pathway to transform our food systems in ways that will build a sustainable, equitable, resilient and healthier food system in our country. These details were said in our national statement at the Food System Summit yesterday evening. However, I would underline that my country, with its arable and abundant land, has the potential to serve as a food basket for Asia-Pacific region and beyond, particularly at a time when food security around the world is now being threatened by the ravages of climate change, sea level rise, and the other crises. We therefore welcome multi-stakeholder partnership and investment to transform our organic food systems to address the global challenges relating to hunger, poverty, malnutrition, food security that fosters better health outcomes for our people and the communities and to deliver on the SDGs. Mr. President, in the energy sector, we recognize the importance of energy transition to renewable sources to move significantly away from fossil fuels and to options including hydro, solar, wind, and geothermal energy. We also have options to clean gas energy Our government has since 2018, under the auspices of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, we have been working with our development partners, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and USA to be exact, on the Papua New Guinea electrification program. This is intended to provide reliable and affordable renewable energy to over 70% of the unreached households in our country by 2030. Enormous development outcomes right on this program for our people. We have struck partnership with the International Solar Alliance and International Renewable Energy Agency, and let me also say our private sector has come on board, the Fortescue Metals Group, the subsidiary, the Fortescue Future Industries, to strengthen our renewable energy transformation options in geothermal and hydropower energy space. Our energy transformation will come about when the National Energy Authority is fully established. It is a very strategic act we took on early this year to separate the regulatories from the responsibilities from the generation of power, and we hope that in the not too distant future, this authority of ours will regulate the energy space to allow for facilitate more investments and developments into the different energy, especially the clean energy sources that we advocate. Mr. President, we want to recapitalize on the energy space and to ensure that clean energy becomes Papua New Guinea's main driving force. Mr. President, the virtual first ever high-level dialogue on energy convened today by yourself or the Secretary General to accelerate efforts in implementing the SDG 7 on energy-related goals and targets for sustainable development is the most timely and needed in as far as Papua New Guinea is concerned. It resonates very well with my government development priority, and we look forward to harnessing the 10-year action plan under the global roadmap to attain SDG 7 by 2030 and further explore joining an energy compact to support SDG 7 achievement by 2030, emissions by the year 2050. Mr. President, as a maritime nation with a maritime zone spanning over 2.4 million square kilometers, the ocean agenda is of immense importance to my country, and not only for the living and non-living resources, but for the value added they bring to our national assets, but also more importantly for our own identity and our own way of life as a people and nation of the seas. My government is also prioritizing and strengthening the management, the governance and security of our maritime zones under our National Oceans Policy 2020 to 2030, which was adopted in July 2020. To further complement this, my government also officially launched last year our 10-year National Fisheries Strategic Plan 2021 to 2020, which provides the roadmap and vision for a broad-based fisheries sector and industry that is inclusive and environmentally sustainable and globally competitive and promotes food security. Furthermore, it addresses issues including prevention of illegal and unreported and unregulated fishing in our country and the neighboring Pacific waters. And it also talks about domestic downstream processing that enables our people as resource owners to be meaningfully involved in the economic opportunities our sea resources brings. We call on countries within our region to be responsible in that regard. Mr. President, I am pleased to say that my government adopted and launched the country's Marine Protected Areas Policy and the National Action Plan of Action for stingrays, skates, and sharks in June 2021. This policy will strengthen our efforts to better protect our marine resources because we are an epicenter for global marine resource and biodiversity. We are grateful for the support from the Global Environmental Facility and UNDP as valued development partners. In doing so, this will assist us to reach the biodiversity Aichi Target 11 to have 17% of our terrestrial and inland water areas and 10% of our coastal and marine areas protected, which we remain committed to. It is in this context, and also with the devastating wildfires and catastrophic climate change events around the world impacting adversely on biodiversity, that we look forward to a successful outcome of the 15th Conference of Parties of the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity that will be staged in China next month. We therefore join the growing global call for an ambitious and transformational post-2020 global biodiversity framework that can help us implement fully our national commitments to protect biodiversity and sustainably use them for our sustainable development and also meeting the SDGs. Mr. President, regionally, I am pleased to join my fellow leaders of the Pacific Island Forum in heralding our milestone regional declaration on preserving our maritime zones in the face of climate change-related sea level rise, which was adopted last month. As a large state within a blue Pacific continent, and the advent of the devastation consequences of the runaway climate change and the rising sea level rise that continues to threaten our countries and the people's security and lives and livelihoods and sovereignty, this